Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to everybody's favorite show about plastic surgery, health, and beauty. This is Nip Talk. On today's episode, first off, injectable peptides for aesthetics. Are they legit? Are they hype? Are they dangerous? We're going to go over all that. And then, women hospitalized after injectable peptides at a wellness fair. What? We're going to tell you all about it. And those stories are coming up right now.
Live from Lincoln Center in the heart of the Dallas Metroplex, this is Nip Talk. An honest and uncensored show about plastic surgery, health, beauty, and lifestyle. With your host, plastic surgeon Dr. Bruce Hermann, and your co-host, entrepreneur and social media influencer Sarah Bennett. Now it's time to discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the topics everyone is talking about. It's time for Nip Talk.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Please hit that like and subscribe button and turn on those notifications. I'm your host, plastic surgeon Dr. Bruce Hermann, and Sarah is not here today. She was going to be here. She was actually doing a segment, and she unfortunately had to go pick her daughter unexpectedly from school, so she's not here. But we're going to save her segment for next week. But I do have Brenna. Brenna, how are you? It's just the two of us today.
It is.
We should have put maybe the third box up there, and we could have put an emoji or something.
I know, that'd be funny.
So I'm going to rely on you to keep it from.
Yeah, you carry today, huh?
Yeah, you're going to have to carry. So, all right. Well, I guess let's jump into some segments. Brenna, I'm going to be asking you questions the whole time, so just get ready.
Okay, perfect.
Have you heard of peptide injections?
I've heard the word, but I don't know what it means.
Okay, don't know what it means. I have to be honest with you. I mean, this is new enough that up until recently, I didn't even really know what they were talking about when they were talking about peptide injections. I mean, so they are kind of hot right now. And so they can be given as an injectable, a topical, or an oral. But injectables are the most common for the med spas and the wellness group. So today we're doing a segment on peptide injections. Are they legit? Are they hype? Could they be dangerous? So, Brenna, I'm about to answer all your questions.
Perfect.
You always wanted to know about peptide injections. So what are peptides? So peptides are short-chain amino acids, which are basically the building blocks of proteins. And one of the functions that peptides do is they act as signaling molecules. And so they can tell one cell to do something. And we already have these things out in the medical field. One of the most common ones we've talked about many, many times on the show is Ozempic or semaglutide. That's a peptide. What it does is it activates the receptors in and around the stomach that tell you you're full and also slow down gastric emptying. So these things have been around forever. Insulin's another one. Insulin that's created pharmaceutically is another type of peptide. So these things have a lot of very, very legitimate uses. There's tons of research on some of them, but they do kind of fall into two categories. So there's the regulated FDA-approved peptides, which would be, again, like semaglutide or insulin. And then there's the experimental ones, and these are not FDA approved, they are not regulated, and that's where all of the aesthetic peptides that you see now on social media fall under, is the experimental categories. And in the aesthetics world, these things are marketed as a life hack tool for stimulating collagen to tighten your skin, burning fat, getting better sleep, promoting hair growth, slowing down the aging process. I mean, I've seen these things, advertised to basically cure everything, more or less. And now, Britta, do you know of any? I'm sure you've heard of peptides. Have you heard of any specific ones, or you just heard the words peptides?
I've definitely heard of it.
But not any one specific?
No.
Okay.
Not specific.
I just was curious. I personally didn't know a ton about these before I did the research for these two segments. Mm-hmm. I knew that they were out there, but there's a lot of stuff in aesthetics where it comes up and it's new and it's hot and people talk about it and then it kind of fades away. And so, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention. But as these things get bigger and bigger, and in fact, the whole reason I am doing these segments is because somebody sent me the article for the second segment we're going to do, and I was like, okay, I probably better brush up on these. So again, these things are given in multiple forms. There's oral, like a pill, there's topical, like a cream, and then there's injectable. And the reason the injectable ones are so much more popular is because the other two versions are really not effective whatsoever, because the skin basically will block the larger molecules or the peptides from absorbing. So you can put these, peptides in a topical solution on your skin, but it doesn't penetrate the skin. The skin's actually a really good barrier. It's what it's designed for, is to block things from getting in. And so the topical versions are not really great because they don't penetrate, so they don't work. And they have a very similar problem with the oral versions, is that the stomach acid breaks down peptides. I mean, that's what our stomach acid does. It breaks down protein. You eat a steak, eat a hamburger, your stomach acid breaks that down. And so oral peptides also not very effective. But injectable can be effective. For example, that's why semaglutide's injected, insulin's injected. And so it all kind of makes sense when you think of it like that. So I was going to go over some of the more popular peptides that are out there, and I'm going to talk about what's claimed that they do. And these are things that you'll see a lot at like wellness centers. Some med spas have them. Although I haven't seen a lot of plastic surgeons pushing these. I did see one dermatologist that was talking about peptides. And I mentioned that just because, a lot of times if the people who are really the experts are not jumping on board with something, then you might be wary. You get a lot of primary care doctors pushing these, which, I mean, no offense to them, they serve a valuable purpose, but I'm not sure it's aesthetics. So anyway, I was going to talk about some of these more popular ones. So there's GHK-Cu, which is copper peptide. So this one is claimed to promote collagen, which would tighten your skin, increase blood vessel growth, which also is good for your skin, regulate inflammation, now that's also good, and improve wound healing. So, okay, that sounds pretty great, if it actually works and it was safe. So that's one of the really popular ones. They call it copper peptide. The next one is body protection compound, also known as BPC-157. This one is promoted to improve in healing of injuries and decrease inflammation. Okay, also good. There is ipamorelin, IPAMORELIN, also known as CJC. Oh no, it's ipamorelin's combined with CJC-1295. So that's two peptides that are oftentimes given as a combo treatment. So together, these are said to improve fat loss. Well, okay, that's encouraging, something you'd want. Give you better sleep, improved recovery, so like post-workout recoveries, and then also anti-aging. Okay, again, if these things were effective, that would all be things that are very positive and things that you could easily, entice someone to want to take. The other one that's fairly well known is sermorelin, SERMORELIN. I'm probably butchering that. This is a growth hormone releasing hormone. So this increases lean muscle mass, improves skin thickness, and also is said to improve cognition. Okay, so we talked about a bunch of these peptides, right, and all the things that they're supposed to do. And if you get on these websites for some of the wellness centers and the med spas, they will say, oh, there's all this research to show that these things are the greatest and they're very effective. So is that true? Well, sort of, not really. The research on peptides, for the most part, is either lab research or it's animal research. So what that means, kind of in a very simple manner, is instead of these research papers or research projects doing a very in-depth study on actual humans where there are no, or at least less possibilities of any bias being injected, the research that's being touted for these peptides is almost entirely lab or animal models. And why that's important is that it doesn't necessarily correlate to humans. And you see this a lot. I mean, I see it literally all the time in the aesthetics world where some product will come out and it'll say, oh, the research shows that this does X, Y, and Z. And then you look at it and it's lab research. They basically, for example, they might put this compound in with some cells and it stimulates the cells to do something. They say, oh, well, because it does this in a petri dish, if you put this on your skin, then you're going to, have anti-aging properties, which does not correlate. It might correlate, but it certainly doesn't guarantee it at all, and it's very commonly it doesn't. What it does in a petri dish or what it might do in an animal like a mouse or a rat does not correlate to humans. So we don't really consider that really good data.
Yeah, that's sketchy, in my opinion.
It's a little misleading,
Yeah.
you know, if there's...
I wouldn't trust it personally if I knew that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna take these products and use them, you wanna know that one, do they work? And two, are they safe? And so anything that's FDA regulated, and I get that the FDA is a very large government organization that sometimes can be overbearing. I mean, you see that, but at the end of the day, I do feel that the things that they approve are safe and effective for the most part, you know? I mean, maybe something slips through the cracks occasionally. But if you have none of that regulation, then you really don't know what you're getting. And if you don't have research to show that something's effective, then you also don't know what you're getting, and it may not be safe. Some of these things do have a few human models, but the ones that do, the models are very, very small and not what's considered high quality studies. But I'm gonna ask you a question, because I think I'm about doing a segment on this next week. Are you familiar with the different types of research methodologies and what they mean? I mean, I probably not, right? I mean, or are you? Maybe, maybe. Like, so for example, if somebody says like a cohort study or a double-blind randomized study, does that mean anything to you? And I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm asking you as like a non-medical person because.
I don't think so.
Okay, fine. That's all I was asking is like in the medical world, when we're looking at research on medical topics, we always want to know what kind of study it is, and I just didn't know how much of that is common knowledge. Yet you have to forgive me, Brennan, because I've been in this game too long, and so things that are just common knowledge to me, I forget sometimes
Yeah.
or not. So that's why I was asking you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you're good.
You shouldn't. I wouldn't expect you to know that. I'm actually thinking about doing a segment on different types of studies. So I think it's important because it makes people more aware, right?
The whenever you talked about insulin earlier, I think that like rang a bell, but
Right, like insulin. That, you know, if you have diabetes and you get insulin
just
shots.
That, but that's
Yeah, yeah. That's
my
a peptide.
knowledge.
You're going to be very educated on medical
can't
topics.
wait.
By it was
I'm
funny
here for it.
when Trey left here. He was like, "I feel like I really know a lot about plastic surgery and medicine."
I want to go back and watch like all the old ones just so I have
Oh, yeah?
his info on top of mine, so he doesn't have any extra knowledge.
It would take you a
on top of
long
me.
time. I think
know.
there's 150 episodes
Yeah,
now.
definitely.
We're going to build a new knowledge base for you. I'm very
Perfect.
excited. You'll be
Yeah.
able to impress your friends at parties with useless information about peptides and other very exciting topics.
Yeah, or my friends that are in like medical school. Like I
Yeah.
have a handful of friends that are doing all that. So
Oh, do you?
I'll just impress them. Yeah.
There you go. Excellent. Yeah, all right. So again, there's not a whole lot of evidence that these things are effective. And you know, I mean, to me, that's the most important thing. When somebody comes to my office and they're pushing a product that they want me to try, the very first thing I say is, what does the research show? Because that's all I care about. You know, I don't want someone's story about how, oh, you know, someone used this and it had these great results. What does the research show? If you don't have research that shows that it's effective, then to me, it's a non-starter. The other thing is the risk and safety concerns. You know, these are non-FDA approved products, which means there's no regulation in their creation. A lot of these are made in compounding pharmacies, which I'm not like poo-pooing compounding pharmacies because we actually use one. We've been using one for over a decade, and I think it's really good. Their products have been excellent. We've not had any problems with them. But there is no regulation in these peptides, and so it does bring up the concern of, you know, contaminants or potency issues where they're not all the same dosage, which could potentially be harmful. These things do have various side effects. There also is the issue that, you know, you're injecting something into your body, which runs the risk of things like infection. And that's fairly minor, I guess, but it's definitely worth mentioning. And you know, there are a little bit of ethical concerns about these because a lot of these are touted as all natural, but these are biosynthesized, you know, medications. They're not all natural. They didn't squeeze them out of a plant or anything. So I do have a little bit of issue or concern with peptide injections for aesthetics. The two most important ones being that literally there's no research to show that these are effective, and there's not any extensive amount of data to show that they're safe long term. So yeah, I really can't encourage people to do these. I mean, I don't think it's insane if you want to try them. I think that you would have to go into it with low expectations and hope to be surprised, and also the realization that there's some risk to doing it. I don't think they're going to kill you, but
what's like the price range for these?
That's all over the map. I think it depends on the specific ones. I think they run in the hundreds of dollars for injections. But yeah, I was trying to nail that down. I should have put a little bit more information about that. Yeah, they're not super expensive. They typically want you to do a series of them. But yeah, in the range of hundreds, depending on which one it is. And of course, that's per injection, so multiply that by how many they want you to get. It's all really new, so it's all over the map as far as like what people are doing with it.
That makes sense.
So yeah, I mean, I'm a little leery of this. Again, I'm always leery of treatments that are pushed by people who are not considered aesthetic experts. Mm-hmm. You don't see plastic surgeons pushing peptide injections, at least that I've seen. And even dermatologists haven't. I saw one dermatologist talking about it when I was doing research. Maybe there's more, but yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the wellness crowd, and some of the med spas, which could be run by literally anyone these days because the laws are so loose. So, but yeah, we'll keep on top of this one. I'm sure more data will come out. This thing's kind of hit pretty suddenly, in my opinion. And I think we're going to be hear more about these. It also is possible to just kind of fade away. I mean, if they're not very effective, people will quit doing them, and then the market will collapse, and that'll be that. So we'll see. All right, I'm going to recap this one real quick, Brendan. So today on Nip Talk, we were talking about peptide injections. Are they legit? Are they hype? Are they dangerous? So we went into a lot of detail about these peptides, which are short-chain amino acids, which are used as neurotransmitters. They basically are little proteins that, if they're put into your body, they tell your cells to do something. There's two really common ones that are known. Semaglutide or Ozempic is a peptide, as is insulin. Now, these are FDA-approved medically used peptides, and what we were talking about are the peptide injections for aesthetics, which falls into the experimental category of peptides. These are non-FDA regulated, non-FDA approved, and they've kind of exploded on the market. You see all these social media posts about them, and we talked about the different ones. There's copper peptide and imorelin and all these very unusual names for these little molecules, and they claim to do all sorts of things like increase your collagen, anti-aging effects, increase hair growth, increase muscle growth, decrease fat. The problem is that there is really not any research to show that these things are actually effective. All of the research that is touted is either lab research or animal research, with very few exceptions, which means there's no actual big studies to show on humans that these are effective, which also means there's no studies to show are they safe long term. So if there's no research to show that these are effective, I just can't in good conscience say, oh yes, you should go do these. I don't think that they're killing people, although we do have a segment that may say something different coming up, but there is some question about the safety. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the peptide injections for aesthetics. I just don't think the research is there, and I think you're kind of wasting your money if you do it. So, but leave me a comment if you've had a good experience. I'd love to hear about it. Okay, moving on. You excited about the next one?
I am.
Okay, please hold your excitement. I don't want you bursting out of the control center there. Okay.
Suspense.
Yeah, all right, I gotta get ready. This is going. I gotta get a drink of water here. Okay, I'm ready. Ready, Brennan?
Yep.
Okay, all right, good. So we recently did a segment on aesthetic peptide injections, and oddly enough, we have another segment about peptide injections, but this one is less informative and more of a warning. So this is a segment on women being hospitalized after wellness fair peptide injections. How interesting. So In July, the Revolution Against Aging and Death Festival. Who named that? Is that not the worst name ever? The Revolution Against Against Aging and Death Festival?
Yeah,
That sounds like a bad rock festival, like maybe like a death metal festival.
Yeah, I don't.
They need better marketing team.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a bad name. Sorry, I derailed my own conversation. So this is a wellness fair that promised pathways to unlimited lifespan. That sounds totally legit. I think if I saw a festival that offered to make me immortal, that I would absolutely run there. No, I would not. Okay, so at the Revolution Against Aging and Death Festival, how do you even say that? Would that be RADIF? The RADIF Fest? RADIF? How would you?
I'm the last person to ask about pronouncing.
I was thinking like the acronym. How would you say that?
Yeah.
Like RADIF? The RADIF Festival or RAD Festival? Okay.
Rad.
The RAD Festival. This is rad. It's immortality. Immortality at the RAD Festival. Okay. So at the RAD Festival, there was a physician from Los Angeles named Kent Holtorf. This guy is an endocrinologist. He had a booth that promised age reversal. This guy's actually been in the news before. Kind of an interesting fellow. He was very critical of the FDA regulation on alternative therapies and was very vocal about criticizing the FDA for blocking some compounds. Yeah, that all kind of adds up. He was also in the news criticizing various vaccines and was eventually given a cease and desist letter by the Federal Trade Commission for claims on his website about peptides replacing regular medications. So this guy's been in the news before, and not necessarily for good things. Okay, so how ironic that this gentleman had two women that came to his booth who got peptide injections, and in very short order reported tongue swelling, increased heart rate, and trouble breathing. The EMS had to be called, ambulance had to be called.
Sounds awful.
Yeah, it gets worse. They had to be intubated, which, Brennan, I'm going to teach you about intubation.
Okay.
All right, have you heard that word before?
No.
Okay, it's okay. I don't ask you these things to put you on the spot. I'm asking you because a lot of times, again, things that are common knowledge to me are not, and so I'm honestly asking.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, I don't mean that at all to put you on the spot. Mm-hmm. You're not expected to know these things.
Okay.
Okay, so intubation is when somebody is in respiratory failure, so they're about to die because they can't breathe, and they actually put a tube down your throat, and then that way they can breathe for you with a bag.
I've seen that, I just didn't know what it was.
Yeah, right. So if you've seen on TV where they have the bag, now on TV they generally have it with a mask, and so the reason that the mask isn't great is because your mouth and your throat and basically your oral airway can block that flow. Plus, you're also squeezing a bunch of air into the stomach when you do that because there's two holes back there. There's the trachea and the esophagus. And so if you're just bagging somebody with a mask, and you're getting air everywhere, which you don't want. So you put a tube into the trachea, and then you can control breathing for someone. Okay, so that's intubation. You do not want to be intubated. That means that bad things are happening to you. So getting intubated is bad. Just if you take one thing away from today's podcast, you do not want to be intubated because that means things are not going well for you. Perfect. So these two ladies had to be intubated because they were in respiratory failure, or more, I don't say more likely, but also possible is that they were getting airway swelling and then they were not able to pass air, versus respiratory failure meaning they couldn't breathe for other reasons.
Their tongue swelled up, and what else were their symptoms?
So their tongue was swelling, heart rate increase, and difficulty breathing.
Ugh.
Yeah, that sounds horrid. Like, and it would be very.
And they both had those exact same symptoms?
Allegedly, yes,
okay.
Per these news articles that I read. So they had to go to the hospital. They're okay,
good.
But they had to be in the hospital for several days, which is no bueno. And now more news is coming out. Up to 7 women who received treatments at the wellness fair had to go to the hospital. Oh, that's so terrible. 7 women had to go to the hospital after the wellness fair. It is unknown if the other 5 women saw Dr. Holtorf or someone else. So I can't say that all 7 saw this one doctor. It did not specifically say, so I cannot assume that. I can just tell you that 7 women I went to the wellness fair and got treatments, had to go to the hospital after. So that's bad. So now there's investigations underway to try to figure out what happened, because I will tell you the symptoms that they have are very unusual. And when I first saw the article, the headline about, oh, someone had to be intubated after injections, my first thought was that they got Botox injections, because Brenna, as you may or may not know, Botox is a paralytic. It's how it makes you not have wrinkles, because it paralyzes your facial muscles. And if that Botox gets into your bloodstream and it gets into your lungs, or not your lungs, your diaphragm, you can't breathe, and then you go into respiratory failure. And so at first I thought, well, maybe they were getting Botox and then they got too big of a dose because it was some compounded stuff or some fake Botox or who knows, and they went into respiratory failure. But no, they actually got peptide injections. So I personally think that they probably had some sort of anaphylactic reaction. So have you heard of people that maybe get stung by bees, Brenna?
Yes.
And then it's a medical emergency.
Yeah.
So it would be that very similar to that, like an anaphylactic reaction where like everything starts to swell up, like people who are allergic to peanuts, that kind of thing, right?
Okay.
But that basically means that there had to be some contaminant, in these peptide injections.
Yeah, something
Right, something was not right.
Right.
If you have to be intubated after an injection.
This is not a wellness fair. It needs a new name.
Yeah, they need to change the name of the wellness fair. So
Unwellness.
I think they probably had the unwellness fair.
Not trying to make light of it.
No, we're not. We're not making fun of it. I mean, I'm glad everyone's okay. But I mean, people need to know that there are, dangers out there.
Right.
So they're trying to figure out what happened to these ladies. I'm sure we eventually will find out. I'm guessing anaphylaxis due to some sort of contaminant. That would be the most likely cause. There is a little bit more controversy because Dr. Holtorf, who is from Los Angeles, does not have license to prescribe or give medications in Nevada. Now, he was smart enough to actually hire another doctor and nurse to administer these therapies, but that's, I don't know, sort of sketchy, in that you're bringing someone in who may or may not be familiar with what they're doing.
A red flag, if you will.
That's right, it is a red flag. You're getting good. You're picking up the red flag. I like it. Every episode, you're getting more knowledgeable. So yeah, I just found it interesting and potentially, frightening that so many people had these really severe reactions after peptide injections, to the fact that they had to go on life support. I mean, that's worrisome. And so when we did our segment on peptide aesthetic injections, that was one of the things we brought up, was that there's no FDA regulation of these things, and risks like this could happen, and sure enough, they did at this wellness fair. So again, I'm going to kind of stand by what I said previously about peptide injections. I mean, most notably that there's not a lot of research to show that they're effective. The research out there is lab data and animal models, which are not considered to correlate to human effectiveness. And also there is not a lot of studies on the long-term potential side effects or harmful effects. And then, of course, because there's no regulation, you can get into issues with contaminants, which could potentially cause things like anaphylaxis, which sounds like happened to these poor ladies. So definitely need to be aware, Brenna, before you just let some random person inject you with an unknown substance.
I will.
That sounds
Definitely will.
it sounds very sketchy when you say it like that.
I know.
Just all sounds bad.
Yeah. I wonder, how much did they pay for this?
It was probably free if it was at the
Okay,
wellness
that's
fair.
what I was
I'm guessing. I don't know. Maybe they did get charged for it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I certainly would feel really bad if they paid to have to go to the hospital for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
I would imagine there'll probably be a lawsuit over this.
When was this?
July.
Okay.
So a little over a month ago. Yeah.
Wow.
I can't imagine there won't be a lawsuit on this, because there's a lot of really gray things happening here with all of it. And so, yeah, lawsuits are coming. I'm glad they're okay, but still, if you have to spend 5 days in the hospital, that's considered a bad outcome,
Right.
for an injectable. So, okay, let me recap this one real quick. So, Today we're talking about this crazy thing that happened at a wellness fair. And I'm going to have to look again because the name of this wellness fair is hilarious. The Revolution Against Aging and Death Festival, held in Las Vegas in July, had 7 women have to go to the hospital after treatments that they received there. 2 of the women had to be intubated, which means they had to put on life support for potential respiratory failure after getting peptide injections. And we had been talking about peptide injections in another segment, so check that one out. And one of the things I mentioned is these are not FDA regulated, and there is the potential for contaminants to get into these things. And it sounds like that they had anaphylaxis, which would be from some sort of contaminant in the peptide, and they had to be put on life support. That is no bueno. There was also some controversy about the doctor that did the injections because he wasn't licensed in the state. So all of it is very bad at the festival there. So if you want to learn more about it, please check out that segment. Also check out our segments about peptide aesthetic injections in general if you want to learn just more about them as a basic topic. So, okay, Brennan, I think we made it. It's kind of quiet without Sarah, right?
I know, yeah.
I mean,
I
not,
like her commentary a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, not that she's jumping up and down and stuff, but she does kind of add. It's like kind of quiet. But you did good today.
Thank you.
Yeah, you were in there, like, asking questions and contributing. I'm gonna give you a gold star today.
Thank you.
Yeah, very good. All right.
I was actually intrigued by this. This is.
See, now you know. You can talk about
especially
peptide.
how recent it is. I'm like, okay.
Well, we try to, I mean, a lot of times when I'm looking for segments to do, I'm just scrolling through the news and seeing what's out there. And now I have friends who are always sending me these, little clips about. Thank you, Robert, my friend Robert, who sent me the segment about, or the news article about the wellness fair. That was a good one, which spawned the other segment that we did. So yeah, we got our army out there, Brenda. They're helping us out. The Nip Talk army.
Right. They're spawning.
They are. Okay, all right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Leave some comments. We want to hear what you'd like us to talk about on the next episode of Nip Talk. Bye.